Time and time again, people are always asking me, Aiden, how do I visualize scales on the fretboard? How do I get fretboard fluency, fretboard mastery, blah, 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 blah. Everybody wants to understand how to use the fretboard so that way we can shred and get out of the box, etc., etc. Well, I'm going to show you in this video exactly how to get the fretboard down with scales, and more so how to visualize the fretboard so that way you can access the entire thing and get out of the box. So let's get into it. On this channel, I've talked about something called horizontal scale playing, which is just a term that I came up with just now. It's basically how we can move scales in a horizontal way rather than a vertical way, and we're going to go over that again a little bit today. But the problem is with most guitar players, and it's not really our fault, is when we start playing guitar, the very first thing that we learn when it comes to scales are the 5 pentatonic positions or the cage system, usually both, right? And when you look up the cage system, you're going to see a lot of mixed things. Some people saying, oh, it works for scales only, or oh, it works for arpeggios only, or oh, it's just to show you how the chords go up across the fretboard. And here's the thing about cage is if it works for you, go for it. That's great. But in my opinion, I've seen it do so much damage to a lot of beginner and intermediate students that it just kind of is a huge waste of time. Okay, you can watch my video about why the cage system ain't in. Okay, but I'm going to show you a really awesome way on how we can visualize scales and get out of the box, because the cage system, in my opinion, just keeps you in the box. Now, if you're like me, one of the first scales that you learned was minor pentatonic. So we're going to use that as our example first, and then we're going to switch to a few other scale shapes just so you really understand how to use it and how to do it on other strings other than the low E string. So let's get into it. One of the first things that you can do to get out of the box is just to bump that up 12 frets. And that's great, okay, but how do we get from here to here with just that one scale shape? If I only had that scale shape, this is how I would do it. The first step to doing this is you need to know where the octave is in this scale. So if we're doing A minor pentatonic, just locate where the next A is. So the first one is where we started, then the next one is down 2 over 2, just like that, okay? So what this basically means is for step number 2, if we know how many notes there are before the octave, we're going to know when to shift up the fretboard, because remember, everything on the guitar pretty much works symmetrical. So things like arpeggios, we can move it up. Things like scales, we can move it up. Any position, interval, all that stuff. Everything can be basically moved around. That's the beauty about the guitar. So if we know that there are 5 notes in the minor pentatonic scale, my octave is where my ring finger goes on the 7th fret of the D string, right? So all we have to do, technically speaking, instead of using this right here, just slide your index finger up to here, okay? Now this is where people mess things up the most. Instead of trying to think of the notes, just think of the shape that you did up here and move it right here up the octave. So what we did right here was we did 5 8 5 7 5, or index pinky index ring index. So when you go up to here, do the exact same thing. Index pinky, index ring, and then index. The problem is the B string is a third away from G instead of a fourth like the other strings are divided. Just a little bit of extra music theory stuff. Don't worry about it. All you got to do is shift the B string up an extra fret to get the right note. Now, one more spot where people mess up all the time is this spot where they, for some reason, when we shift up a fret here, they feel like that's where they reset and do this. But that's not your root. Remember, 5 notes is the whole scale. So right there, we need to shift that up 2 frets and then redo the shape again. Okay, so just to review, all we've done so far is we've taken the first 5 notes, up 2 frets again, up 2 frets again. Now obviously right here, we're actually all out of strings, so we need to start shifting just this way. And luckily for you, the root is really, really close. So the 15th fret would be your 5th note, and then your 17th fret would be your root again. So you can come back this way, like the 12th fret rule like we've been doing. That's a really good way of doing it. Really quickly, just a side note, if you are a really serious guitar player, whether you're doing it for a hobby or you're trying to do it as a career, if you really want to master the guitar, the fretboard, the technique, the shredding, the music theory, all that stuff, I do have a masterclass that is absolutely perfect for guitar players who are stuck, who are just really ready to take it to the next level. So the masterclass has a combination of the curriculum that I've developed over the past 5 years, as well as live Zoom sessions. 4 times a week is what we're doing right now, and we might even increase it soon. And we also have things like a community tab. We have backing tracks for you. We have tons of exercises and books and a crazy amount of stuff. And I've seen some crazy results from this method. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave a link below to work with me with that, and we'll talk there. Let's use another example just to make sure that we really understand this. For this next example, we're going to use a major scale shape that so many people use on the guitar, especially when they first start learning. So we're going to use this scale shape. Okay, which I personally don't really like that shape, because whenever there is an uneven number of notes, or rather not the same amount of notes on each string, it can confuse students a lot, but we're going to use it anyway because a lot of people are just used to it. So it's the 8-10, 7-8-10, and then the 7-9-10. Okay. Okay, so if we understand the things that we did before, which is where the octave is and how many notes there are in the scale, the octave of C is the 10th fret, right? So all we need to do now is understand that there are 7 notes in a full major diatonic scale. So all I need to do in theory is just play those notes and then stop at that 7th note, and then do a switch to where now your middle finger starts where the root was up here. Right? Just like that. And then the hard part is, remember, the B string, you got to bump it up next fret. So I'm visualizing as if I'm here, middle pinky, index middle pinky, and then index ring. Middle pinky, index middle pinky, index, you could do, as long as you get over here with your middle. And then obviously from there, we got to do just a little bit of counting or just a little bit of fretboard note identification. But the beauty of this is it will get you out of the box and it will get you moving. Okay, so let's do one more scale example. So for this one, we're going to do harmonic minor starting on the note B on the 7th fret. So with harmonic minor scale, we're going to do, okay, so typically the scale looks like this. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to stop. We're going to first identify the root, which is right there on the 9th fret of the D. And then we're just going to stop after 7 notes. Then we're just going to shift it up a fret and repeat. And then you're going to shift it up a fret and repeat again. Okay, so if you understand how this works, let's paint a picture here. If I was teaching a complete beginner about scales and I only taught them one scale, the minor pentatonic, like I did earlier, in theory, they should be able to improvise fairly decently just with one scale shape, because they can do it this way, they can do it this way, and they can do it this way. Okay, so imagine if you knew all the diatonic scales and you know all the modes. That means that you have a ton of possibilities. So basically for each scale, you have 3 different possibilities. Number 1, number 2, and then number 3. If you want to add a number 4 on there, you can do scales based on the A string and kind of do it the same way. So technically, I guess you get 2 shapes. So if you wanted to do, let's say, A minor pentatonic on the 12th fret of the A string, okay? Not doing this in an in-depth lesson for this video, but if you're getting confused about how scales work starting on the A string, it's kind of a similar thing with the B string, where we can visualize this just right here. So it'd be index pinky, index ring, and then index ring up a fret, and then index pinky. Okay, so it's as if I'm doing this here, just up on the A string, index, pinky, and then 3 index rings, right? But the B string just goes up a fret, and then the E string, you can go back to the original spot. So in theory, you can also do this as well, as long as you use that B string and go up. So technically speaking, that's 5 different ways of playing just one scale. So if you knew all 7 modes, that's 35 ways of playing all of those. If you knew the other scales like minor, harmonic minor, melodic minor, or whatever other scales you want to use, you have like an infinite amount of possibilities on this. I don't know why this isn't talked about very much, but I keep preaching it to my students that this is the way to get out of the box. The problem is, again, is that we've been brought up to solo in the box, right? And we haven't really gotten the chance to understand how a lot of other instruments and how a lot of other instrumentalists are playing their stuff. And this is kind of the way to do it. Okay. You know, some people ask me, does this work for arpeggios too? The answer, some people ask me, does this work for arpeggios too? Absolutely. Like if you did a minor triad, diminish, dominant 7. All of these things can go this way. I think the guitar, in fact, was meant to kind of ascend that way rather than just that way. So that's it for this video. I really hope that helped. I hope it kind of cleared some things up, and then I will see you guys in the next video.